And fans, welcome to Sports Chat, the playoff edition. The Cougars thoroughly dominated the Panthers of Powell this week. And now have moved on to the postseason where they'll take on Morristown West.
Yeah, Powell, as I wrote this week in the game write-up, amazing how much the two programs have changed. You're sitting there watching it, and Matt and Justin Price's first year, Powell was ahead, I think, 58-0 at halftime, 166-0 or somewhere along. That's the worst loss of the Price era. And just a few short years later, Powell 1-9, getting blown out, dominated, shut out by Campbell County. And it shows you, A, how fast fortunes can change in high school football, and B, the value of a good coaching staff and where it can take you and where it can keep you. Powell's constant turnover of the coaches, as we pointed out, just it's led to turmoil, chaos, and a really bad team.
And a really good Oak Ridge team.
You know, we should know from that because Campbell County would change coaches every few years, and it would be the same results for a long time with Campbell County. But Morristown West, a very solid team. Very tough draw. I mean, it's the 4 or 5 seeds, so you expect the Campbell County and they to be equals, basically.
I watched a little bit of film on them that I could find online today. They're pretty good. I mean, their losses are just some really good teams. They've lost to undefeated South Doyle, to Dobbins Bennett, and to Sevier County.
I believe that South Doyle was the only team that really beat them badly, but I could be mistaken on that. It seemed like they lost 49-45 maybe to Kingsport Dobbins Bennett.
They played Dobbins Bennett close.
They had some big wins. I can't remember if it was Greenville. I think maybe they're the only team that beat Greenville this year. I believe that.
They may have.
It seems like I looked at they played Greenville, and they had beaten Greenville. And Greenville's 9-1, and they beat Cumberland Gap 82-0 last week. But really solid program at Morristown West. And I say Dobbins Bennett's a powerhouse on the level of Oak Ridge and Sevier County and South Doyle. South Doyle's a close win over them last week was for that region's championship. So Sevier County, obviously a good program, moves up to 6A in the playoffs. So I said these were close losses. Morristown, they didn't get dominated by anybody. I mean,
yes. If you look at Dobbins and Bennett over the years, they're probably one of the most dominating schools in Tennessee. I mean, they're historically dominated.
Yeah, I mean they're the Northeast Tennessee Oak Ridge.
Sevier County has had some spectacular years.
Sevier County lately, and Sevier County lost to Maryville this year, South Doyle, who's undefeated, and I think Sevier County may have lost a close one to Dobbins Bennett as well, or maybe Science Hill, because I want to say Science Hill's around 9-1 or 10-0 as well this year.
And, by the same token, you look at Campbell County's 2 losses. One is to Oak Ridge, which is the Oak Ridge of high school football.
Undefeated Oak Ridge team, and then their other one was, of course, to Anderson County, who only lost to Oak Ridge and a just powerfully stacked Catholic squad. So, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a club. It's not going to be, in my opinion, unless the players just play well over their heads. It's not going to be like last year's playoff game when you show up and blow Gibbs out of the water, by 40 points. And I don't expect that. I expect it to be a shootout. You got to hope Campbell County's players are healthy and ready to go.
It was an attractive enough of a matchup that it's WVLT's playoff Friday game of the week.
Not good for those of us who cover it because they crowd everything out and already crowded space. But that's what
they're much better than those terrible Jackals at WVR.
Yeah, I know you want to
parking their giant RV in the middle of our road, making us walk.
And hopefully the weather's good. Hopefully it's not rainy. It's supposed to be pretty cold, but that's just the way it is this time of year.
It was pretty cold last year for the playoffs.
Yeah, it was in the low 30s during the playoff games last year. Upper 30s, I think, at West and rainy.
Now, our route is a little bit different this year in the fact that if we win Friday night, we're facing the winner of Gibbs South Doyle, which is probably going to be South Doyle.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if South Doyle loses. I mean, once again, we've talked about the point of great coaches and program building. They have Clark Duncan, who's one of the best coaches that East Tennessee's ever had roll through. I mean, you look at him, he's the one that turned Powell into a powerhouse back 20 years or so ago, and he got out of coach. I think maybe he moved out of state for a while.
No, he actually just believe it or not, he retired from coaching just moved over to South Doyle to be their athletic director. And when Swafford left, he took over as coach.
It's worked out for South Doyle. I mean, as you see, Joe Gaddis immediately gets Oak Ridge back to 10-0. I mean, Oak Ridge is a program that, everybody knows Oak Ridge. 9-1, 10-0 type seasons were the norm for them for a lot of years. And they had years and years of struggle. Joe Gaddis comes in, he gets them 7-3 back in the playoffs, and 10-0 the next year.
And, for our district, this is a banner year for the playoffs. We had 6 teams make it.
Yeah, Central made it in by virtue of their win over Gibbs on Friday night.
Of course, they got the victory prize of facing Knox West in the first round. Clinton goes down to Cleveland to play.
Yeah, every team in the district except for Halls,
Carnes and
Powell made the playoffs. I mean, Campbell County plays in a tough district, and you get a tough region. South Doyle, that's a great team, and Morristown West is a great team. There will be nobody. The person that comes out of this is going to earn their way through it, because West and Anderson County are also in it.
AC plays Tennessee High. Not a terrible school, but they are kind of the poor sister in comparison up in the Tri-Cities area. And, of course, if they win, it sets up the Anderson County West rematch from last year's third round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's right now the road out of 5A goes through West. I mean, South Doyle is a great-looking program. They are undefeated, strong. But, West is the last group that came out of East Tennessee and went to the state championship game. So, it goes until West, somebody can knock them out of the playoffs. West is a big dog in the pod and in the entire Eastern Tennessee playoff region.
I was telling Jason from your lovely Jason's video earlier that the state title could easily be decided in the semifinals between West and Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
And that last game just be a formality.
We'll see. There are some powerful teams out in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee. I mean, Henry County did beat West last year, and they're a good team again this year. So you just don't know, but it's a lot of good teams. I think 2 of the 10-0 teams are in this very small pod area with South Doyle, and then the West, of course, would probably be 10-0 if they didn't have to play Maryland.
Yeah. And you shift gears a little bit. Tennessee picked up a big SEC win.
Oh, that was a desperately needed win after, getting out to a rough start. And it makes you say, what if? I know the coaches wanted to redshirt Josh Dobbs, and I think the reasoning behind that was they wanted Josh Dobbs to be a senior when these 2 top 5 classes we signed were juniors and sophomores. And they were building for the future with that, but fans don't really appreciate having a sophomore of that caliber on the bench. And in my opinion, and I may be completely off base, I think it literally cost us the Georgia and Florida games.
I would definitely say it cost us both those games.
I mean, Florida for certain. There's no way that I could see Florida holding us to 9 points and a few field goals with Josh Dobbs in there. And Georgia, Worley played pretty well, but he did have a couple of turnovers in the red zone. I think it may have even cost us the Oklahoma game in retrospect. I mean, we appear to have a lopsided score versus Oklahoma, just I think 35-14, but Worley had 3 turnovers in the red zone. Three inside the 20. I mean, he threw literally 2 interceptions into the end zone during the game. So,
of course, this week, give them a chance to rest up and get ready for the rest of the SEC schedules. We have a bye.
Missouri is probably the team that we will have the toughest time with, I would think, coming out of the rest of the season. They're leading the SEC East again this year. I mean, after that, Georgia went out and laid a giant egg, and Mark Richt pulled a former against Florida. So let's left the East wide open.
Here's the thing that kind of baffled me. It kind of made me eat my words. When the Texas A&M and Missouri came in, I'm like, I just don't think Missouri is going to compete well here.
Yeah,
and as it turns out, they've competed really well in football.
Well, Missouri's case, the East is down right now. South Carolina's a mess. Tennessee's a mess. Kentucky and Vanderbilt are always a mess. Georgia is just, they got Mark Richt. He's Philip Fulmer. He's going to lose games that he should never lose and has no business losing. He had no business losing that game to Florida. And Florida's way down compared to normal. They're just in a fortunate time to be in the East. And that's why if Tennessee can rebound the next couple of years quickly under Butch Jones, Tennessee's been in position to take over as a dominant program. And it helps those other teams. Todd Gurley, it helped Florida that Todd Gurley was out, but it was Georgia's defense couldn't stop. Florida. Florida ran all over. They ran for like 450 yards against them. And of course, Todd Gurley should have been suspended for our game, and almost single-handedly is the one that beat Tennessee. So naturally, with Tennessee's luck, that didn't work out at all. I'm not sure if they're going to have to forfeit that game. I would think they would have to forfeit it since he had to be suspended for it, but he was ineligible.
I think so.
But that doesn't help you at all in the standings. It doesn't help you at all with anything else. Still though, Josh Dobbs I thought would have, given us the best chance to win. Butch apparently was trying to save him, but I think we can beat Missouri. Missouri's very beatable. Georgia beat them like 38-0 2 weeks ago, and Missouri I think has beaten Vanderbilt, South Carolina. While South Carolina's been on this big losing streak, they beat Kentucky. I think they may have beaten Florida, and Florida, as we know, has been pretty bad. I can't remember if they beat A&M or not. I just know that Georgia shellacked them. I think they're 5-1 maybe in the East right now. Or they still have to play Tennessee and a couple of other teams. We'll see how they fare, but they may represent the East again. It will probably be a brutal slaughter against whoever wins the West.
Right. I mean, the West is painfully stacked right now.
The West may be better right now than the East was back 15 years ago when Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia were annually top 10 teams. Because once you got past those three, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt were just terrible. But the West is pretty well, stacked up, pretty deep. Half the top 5, it seems like, or more. 4 or 5 teams in the top 10. And it's probably going to be tough for the East to win a championship this year. I hope, I wish nobody could win the SEC championship. Tennessee can't, but, that's just the way it goes. And I said the big thing, if we had played Dobbs and got those 2 wins, what we'd be playing for this when the Missouri game come along?
SEC East championship.
Yeah, we would be at probably going into the Missouri game at about 5-2 in the SEC, and Missouri would probably be 6-2 if we beat them head to head. That would put us both at the same 2 losses with a win over them, and we would probably be playing in the SEC East championship. And literally, what would we lost by Georgia by what? Was it 3-7, whatever it was?
I think 3 points.
And then 1 point lost to Florida. So there you would have had it. And to me, I don't understand. I have faith in Jones and the staff. I just don't understand how Josh Dobbs can play like he does. And they say that he just didn't do it in practice at all, apparently.
I just think that was probably the excuse.
That's the way it sounded to me. It's like it's coach speak. They said they had some kind of metric, and they add up all the metrics of how you play in practice, and that Josh Dobbs was 3rd team by their metric. I don't know what Peterman. Peterman must go out and play like Peyton Manning in practice. He plays like me.
I bet say he plays like AJ Suggs in the game.
I don't think he plays as well as AJ Suggs. AJ Suggs did lead us from 38-7 down against LSU.
That's true.
But it's awful. And I don't see how it could have happened, but there's nothing you can do about it now. I feel like, let's say, it was a wasted opportunity, a chance to, have a 9-3 type season and represent the East in the SEC championship game. But,
and really make the statement that, hey, we're back.
Yeah, that would have helped. But the next 2 years, at least I'm more confident about next year, because next year I'm thinking, my God, all I thought this year is, my God, how bad must Josh Dobbs be that he can't get on the field over these 2 people playing quarterback, when Worley's just a turnover machine and Peterman just looks like literally the deer in the headlights. And now I've got more hope because we are, the 22% freshmen we're playing this year are going to be sophomores with lots of experience.
Todd Kelly Jr.'s had a tremendous year.
He's had a great year.
Jalen Hurd's had a tremendous year.
Defensive lineman Dontavius Blair, he's probably going to be a freshman All-American on the defensive line, and almost assuredly freshman All-SEC, but he's one of the best freshman defensive players, period, in the country this year. So, not Dontavius Blair, that's the big offensive lineman, but it's one of our defensive linemen. I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, he's been great, and we're looking pretty well. Got a really big-time defensive line recruits coming in, and to me, that's when you look. Tennessee's on top of the world when we had just dominant defensive linemen.
Haynesworth, Henderson.
Henderson.
We had Leonard Little at end and later linebacker.
Turk McBride. Just a litany of players who went on to play in the NFL from the defensive tackle and defensive end spots. And when your front four can stop and shut down a running game for the other team without really needing help from the linebackers,
that destroys the other team's passing
yeah,
game.
I mean, that's just the extra people you have back in the passing game. You could not run on Tennessee's front four very well at all. I mean, granted, we would play the Mustang and let teams throw all over us, but I got faith that this defensive staff's a little better than that. But that's the kind of blocks you need. You look at Auburn when they won the championship and when they were going good. They had guys like Nick Fairley and those other big defensive tackles. Alabama had that stupid, fat, terrible piece of junk, Terrence Cody, who blocked all those field goals against us that I'll never forgive for that. But even at the pro level, you look at New England, the anchor of their defense for years has been Vince Wilfork. I mean, he looks like me and Patrick both rolled into one giant ball, big 400-pound
We
tackle.
saw at McDonald's the other day.
But you can't run the ball at the middle on the Patriots when he's in the game. He single-handedly stops it. He occupies 2 offensive linemen all the time. And that's huge. That's going to be huge for Tennessee in the future to have that level of defensive, tackle plays and what it appears we have coming in, plus what we already have.
So it is a future look bright thing. Of course, the future for Campbell County, we see that there's going to be a lot of young people step up.
Yeah, this is a big senior class.
Next year, this class has really left a mark. Senior night last year, very small, six seniors. 4 of them were true in all the time, and another one was a big offensive lineman. This year, I think there was 22 seniors.
Something along those lines, and it's going to be big because I believe 4 of the offensive linemen are seniors. Quarterback, of course, the top 3 wide receivers, the running back, and you flip on the other side of the ball, those same wide receivers who are great and seniors are defensive backs who are seniors, like Torres and Preston
So
Miller.
particularly, you got Preston Miller, who's leading the district in interceptions, and Trey Torres, who
It's a hard-hitting, strong safety. I mean, feared player around the district. The defensive line's going to be pretty darn good next year. I played a lot of sophomores there. We have young linebackers, Dakota Wilson, Austin Raines will be junior, senior type players next year. So the defense is going to be strong. Offensive lineman's going to need some major revamping. Dan Turner's a great coach, though. He'll get the guys, whipped into shape.
I feel like there's a good chance you'll see Mike Rhodes on the O-line next year.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton Webb's going to be back to anchor the offensive line. He's a great player. He's only a sophomore this year, I believe. And there's just some big guys in the wings that are going to come up. The offense will probably look different next year. Coach Price has talked about, if you've been to the Campbell County games and saw it when Ethan Jeffers goes out, when we're up by big margins, or if you watched us against Gibbs when we ran the ball quite a bit, or Halls when we were running the ball a lot, he said that's probably going to be our offense next year. It's just a lot of running the ball, a lot of quarterback designed runs. So like Tennessee with Josh Dobbs, I guess.
Well, fans, that'll about wrap it up for this week's Sports Chat. We'll see you next week with exciting playoff news and some basketball previews.